So let's start off straight away. Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. Om
सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Okay, we'll just chant the Upanishad starting with Shanti Mantra. Om Bhadram Karneभिः शृणुयाम देवाः
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः
भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः
भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागं सस्तुनूभिः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्ट्वागंसस्तनूभिः
यशेम देवहितं यदायुः
यशेम देवहितं यदायुः
स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः
स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः
स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः
स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः
स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्ठनेमिः
स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः
स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु
स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु।
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
ब्रह्मा देवानां प्रथमः सम्बभूव
ब्रह्मा देवानां प्रथमः सम्भूव
विश्वस्य कर्ता भुवनस्य गोप्ता
विश्वस्य कर्ता भुवनस्य गोप्ता
स ब्रह्म विद्यां सर्वविद्या प्रतिष्ठाम्
स ब्रह्म विद्यां सर्वविद्या प्रतिष्ठाम्
अथर्वाय ज्येष्ठपुत्राय प्राह
अथर्वाय ज्येष्ठपुत्राय प्राह
अथर्वणेयां प्रवदेत ब्रह्म
अथर्वणेयावदेत ब्रह्म
अथर्वातां पुरोवाचाङ्गिरे ब्रह्म विद्याम्
अथर्वातां पुरोवाचाङ्गिरे ब्रह्म विद्याम्
स भारद्वाजाय सत्यवहाय प्राह
भारद्वाजाय सत्यवहाय
भारद्वाजोऽङ्गिरसे परावराम्
भारद्वाजो अंगिरसे परावराम्
औनको ह वै महाशालः
शौनको वै महाशालः
अंगिरसं विधिवत् उपसन्नः पप्रच्छ
अंगिरसं विधिवत् उपसन्नः प्रपच्छ
कस्मिन्नु भगवो विज्ञाते
कस्मिन्नु भगवो विज्ञाते
सर्वमिदं विज्ञातं भवतीति
सर्वं विज्ञातं भवतीति
तस्मै सहोवाच
तस्मै सहोवाच
द्वे विद्ये वेदितव्ये इति हस्मद्यद्ब्रह्मविदो वदन्ति इति हस्मयद्ब्रह्मविदो वदन्ति परा चैवापरा च तत्रापरा ऋग्वेदो यजुर्वेदः सामवेदोऽथर्ववेदः शिक्षाकल्पो व्याकरणं निरुक्तं छन्दो ज्योतिषमिति अथ परा यया तदक्षरम् अधिगम्यते यत्तद् अद्रेश्यम् अग्राह्यम् अगोत्रमवर्णम् अचक्षुश्रोत्रं तदपाणिपादम् नित्यं विभुं सर्वगतं सुसूक्ष्मं तदव्ययम् यद्भूतयोनिं परिपश्यन्ति धीराः यथोर्णाभिसृजते गृह्णते च यथा पृथिव्याम् ओषधयः सम्भवन्ति यथा सतः पुरुषात् केशलोमानि तथा अक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम् तथा अक्षरात् सम्भवतीह विश्वम् तपसा चीयते ब्रह्म तथोऽनन्नं विजायते अन्नात् प्राणो मनः सत्यम् लोकात् कर्मसु चामृतम् यः सर्वयज्ञ सर्वविद् यस्य ज्ञानमयं तपः तस्माद् एतद् ब्रह्म नाम रूपम अन्नम च जायते
रूपम् अन्नं च जायते
इति प्रथम मुंडके प्रथम खंडः
इति
प्रथममुण्डके
प्रथममुण्डके
प्रथमखण्डः
So I'll just mute all of you. Right. So we had started with the fifth mantra of this khanda, and we saw that there were two types of knowledge, aparavidya and paravidya. And we said that aparavidya consists of the four Vedas and the six Veda angas, which are Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakaranam, Niruktam, Chandam, and Jyotisham. And then it said that the higher knowledge is that which gives you moksha, that is higher knowledge. And we talked about the means of acquiring paravidya. That one is, of course, that you have to be able to think properly and you have to be emotionally mature. That emotionally mature portion is taken care of by sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, which means karma yoga and jnana yoga take care of all these things. And we had a little bit of discussion on very briefly outlining what the Veda angas are. And now we have to look at the next line, which says atha para yaya tadaksharam adhigamyate. Literal meaning now, atha, now, is para yaya tadaksharam adhigamyate. Adhigamyate means prapyate, to get or to attain. So atha para yaya tadaksharam adhigamyate. That knowledge, that vidya, by which aksharam brahma is attained. So adhigamyate, Shankara translates as prapyate. Prapyate means to get or to attain. And therefore, that knowledge by which aksharam brahma, Brahman is attained, that is said to be paravidya. Right? Apara is the rest of it, including the Vedas. And we had a small discussion on how can Veda mean aparavidya when Brahma Jnanam itself is contained in it. But that we'll come to. Now look at this particular sentence, tat aksharam adhigamyase. So tat is a sarvanama, it's a pronoun. So sarvanama is a pronoun. And tat means that. Normally in a sentence, when you introduce a pronoun, what should already be known?
The noun.
The noun should already be known. But till now, the noun has not been known, right? We don't know, nothing has been talked about Brahman. So tat here refers to Brahman, and therefore Shruti here uses a pronoun, the sarvanama, without introducing the noun. So the aksharam, which tat here refers to aksharam Brahman. But you will find peculiarly here that aksharam Brahman has not been introduced so far, because it will be introduced in the sixth mantra, in the next mantra. And so you come back to the word adhigamyate. It is that knowledge by which Brahman is attained. Because Brahman is in what form? Brahman is ultimately not different from knowledge of Brahman. So you say that person who knows Brahman, Brahmavid apnoti paramam, says the Upanishad. Whoever knows Brahman, he himself gains Brahman. So knowledge itself is not different from Brahman. That has to be understood. Brahman need not be gained at all, because Brahman is there everywhere. It is an ever-present fact. It is a self-revealing fact. And that is every description of Brahman in the scriptures, it talks about something which is self-revealing. And therefore, what needs to be understood by this gaining, attaining Brahman is, it is the removal of avidya, the removal of the ignorance regarding that self-revealing Brahman. That is called gaining Brahman. That's something which we need to understand very clearly. Shankara says very clearly that there is no real gaining The gaining here means the removal of the ignorance. Just like you see the mirror or you get the mirror when you clean the surface properly, then you get your reflection. Nothing has been gained, only the dirt has been removed. Similarly, the removal of avidya here is to be taken as gaining of Brahman. Now, the literal meaning of this particular part of the mantra is that vidya, that knowledge by which Brahman is attained. So Shankara puts an objection over here. How can you attain something? How can you gain something? By knowing that. For example, if I have knowledge of a pot, I don't gain the pot, right? I only know what the pot is. Otherwise, to gain anything, if you can really equate the word knowing to gaining, then one need not ever buy anything in your life. You can go to the car showroom and know the latest car, latest Mercedes Benz, you look at it and know it. And if knowing is equal to attaining, then simply by knowing you attain the car. So how can one say, this is Pupa, Purva Pakshi, how can one say, says he, that knowledge is equal to getting or attaining or gaining? Shankara says, yes, you are right. But this is an exceptional case where knowing and attaining are identical, because the difference between me and Brahman is not physical. It is not real difference. It's an apparent difference caused due to ignorance only. And therefore, by knowing Brahman, I attain Brahman. So a case in point here is the example we get in the Mahabharata when Karan, who is actually a Pandava, but did not know he was a Pandava, he was told by his mother that you are my son. And from that moment, he considered himself a Pandava. It's a very beautiful example. Removal of ignorance of the fact that he was a Pandava made him get what? The status of a Pandava. Similarly, removal of ignorance of the fact that I am Brahman gives me the status of Brahman. So the meaning of Brahma Prapti here, attaining Brahman, and Brahma Jnanam, these are the used in the same sense. Brahma Prapti, attainment of Brahman, is equivalent to Brahma Jnanam. And therefore, the word Adhigama here, says Shankara, is to indicate knowing is attaining. Adhigamyate normally means knowing. But here he says that means you should take it as attaining. Okay. Another example we can give is, I'm sure you know the story of the 10th man. What is the story of the 10th man? Anybody? You mean you don't know the 10th man?
It's people crossing the river and they're doing a head count. Every time a person counts, he doesn't count himself and he ends up counting only 9 people. And they fear that they've lost one man on the way.
Okay, then what happens?
That one?
Yeah, that one. What
Then
happens
another person comes by,
Hmm.
who's a wise man, and then he makes them stand in a line, and then he does a count and then say that it's all 10 of you, and because you were not counting yourself,
Yeah.
the number was coming out to be 9.
Okay. So the physically gaining the 10th man was simply knowing that he was the 10th man. That is the story. So that story is also used here as an example. And therefore, Shankara says, avidyaya apaya. Apaya is a word which we have come across before. Where?
Agama Payano.
Agama apaya. So apaya means go away or removal. So avidyaya apaya. Removal of avidya. He says, eva hi parapraptihi. That alone, eva hi, that alone is the attainment of Brahman. And of course, Shankara comments that he, the word he, has to be understood as the Shruti statement. Brahmavit apnoti paramam. The one who knows Brahman, himself becomes Brahman. And he says, there can be no other meaning given at all. Na artha antaram. You cannot give any other meaning to the word attainment. It has to be the word knowledge. The word knowledge has to be taken as attainment only over here. Okay. Having said that, now another objection comes in from Pupa, the Purva Pakshi. He says that Shruti is saying Tatra para Rigvedo Yajurvedaha. So while defining Apara Vidya, the mantra enumerates, lists out all the 4 Vedas also, in addition to all the 6 Veda Angas. So total 10, 4 Veda plus 6 Veda Angas, they are defined as Apara Vidya. And then again, in the second line it says Brahma Vidya is Paravidya. So first he says Veda is Apara Vidya. And then he says Brahma Vidya is Paravidya. Now this Purvapakshi says that, but Upanishads are part of the Veda, because that is why it's called Veda Anta. It's found in the Veda only. And if you are going to say Brahma Vidya is Paravidya, that taken together with the statement that the Veda is Aparavidya, what is the conclusion? Aparavidya cannot give you moksha. At the same time, you are saying Brahma Vidya is Paravidya. And therefore, you are saying that Brahma Vidya is outside the Vedas. Because Paravidya cannot be inside Aparavidya. Paravidya cannot be a part of Aparavidya. And therefore, this Brahma Vidya is Veda Bahya Vidya. So that's a terminology used. Something outside the Veda is Veda Bahya. Bahya meaning outside. So Veda Bahya it becomes. Brahma Vidya becomes Veda Bahya. And in the tradition, in this tradition of study of scriptures, anything outside the Veda is to be rejected as Veda Bahya. Anything which is outside Veda is rejected by us, because Veda is Pramana. And there is a statement in Manusmriti that knowledge, Jnanam, which is Veda Bahya, that means which is outside the Veda, is called Dushta Darshanam, incorrect knowledge. So Bahya Jnanam, Veda Bahya Jnanam is Dushta Darshanam, incorrect knowledge, and also Nishphalam, useless knowledge. So if you look at this Manusmriti statement, and then you say that Brahma Vidya is Paravidya, and because Paravidya cannot be within Veda, because we defined Veda as Aparavidya, therefore Paravidya here is Veda Bahya Vidya, which is Dushta Darshanam, and hence Nishphala Darshanam. There is incorrect knowledge and useless knowledge. In that case, Brahma Vidya, that is Paravidya, becomes outside Rig Vedadi Bahya, outside the 4 Vedas, because 4 Vedas are being considered as Aparavidya. And how can you consider something which is outside the Vedas as Paravidya? Because you are going against the most fundamental principle. What is that? Veda alone is Pramana. For any Vedika student, only Veda is Pramana. And therefore, something which is outside Veda, Veda Bahya Darshanam, how can it be Moksha Sadhanam? Because it is outside the Veda, and therefore it cannot give you moksha at all. It cannot be called Paravidya at all. And therefore, since Upanishad is Veda Bahyam, Upanishad should be rejected. Since Brahma Vidya is contained within Upanishad, that text should be rejected, and the content, Brahma Vidya, should also be rejected. So this is the first argument of the Purvapakshi. And then one more Purvapakshi comes in and says, even if we accept your argument that Upanishad and therefore Brahma Vidya is included in Veda, and supposing we, drop the title of Veda Bahya, outside the Veda, label I drop, then what is the problem? The problem is that this Veda is consisting of two pieces. One is Aparavidya and one is Paravidya, and it is in the Veda only. And therefore there can be no differentiation because Veda is one. And there can be no differentiation between Aparavidya and Paravidya. This differentiation becomes meaningless for you. You should not be using such terminology at all. Paravidya and Aparavidya, these kind of terms should not be used by Shruti at all. This is the Purva Pakshi argument. Okay, have you got what he's saying? Have you got the argument?
Yes, Acharya. The first Purva Pakshi is first of all wrong because it's not Veda Bahya. So his understanding is also limited out there.
Yeah.
And the second one is basically saying that you're contradicting your own statement.
Okay, right. So Shankara gives his reply. He says, you are right when you say that Apara Vidya is the Veda, yes. But he says that you have to look at the context always. And that is why I keep saying that whenever you look at any sentence in the Veda, or for that matter in Bhagavad Gita, the most important part of interpretation is what? Context. A context always has to be there. And he says when Shruti talks about Rig Veda and Yajurveda in this mantra, Shruti is talking about Veda Purva, Karma Kanda only. While Paravidya is the Jnana Kanda portion. And we will find that this term Veda is sometimes used by Shastram as Karma Kanda, sometimes used by Shastram as Jnana Kanda, and sometimes used as Veda Vedanta, Karma Kanda plus Jnana Kanda. And therefore one has to be always looking at the context. And Shankara quotes 45th verse of chapter 2 of the Gita. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha. What does that statement mean? Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha in Bhagavad Gita.
That the Vishay, the subject matter of the Veda, meaning the Purva Veda,
Yeah.
is that of Prakriti, Kartritvam Bhokta.
Is that of Prakriti. Trigunas, Anatma only. So Nistrayaguna, Bhava Arjuna, he says, go beyond the Trigunas. And therefore in that statement, Gita means, Krishna means Karmakanda or Jnanakanda?
Karmakanda.
Karmakanda. Right. That's the way you should interpret. Now Shankara here says, whenever you say Veda, what are you actually talking about? You're talking about the actual words of the Veda. Veda Shabdaha. Right? The Shabda meaning the actual word, sound which is generated when you repeat the words of the Veda. So Veda Shabdaha. He uses the term Shabda because Veda was a Karana Parampara. It was orally transmitted earlier. Now, of course, we have documentation also. So Veda, he says, the word Veda here is used referring to the words of the Veda. And those words will be Aparavidya only. Because knowledge of the words alone cannot liberate you. Shabda Jnanam alone cannot liberate you. Why? Because if Shabda Jnanam could give you moksha, then by merely chanting the Veda, you would become a Jivan Mukta. You need not take the trouble of an extended study over several years trying to understand the meaning. So Shankara says that Veda, when Shruti says Veda is Aparavidya, Shruti is talking about the chanting only, the words only. The words by themselves. Veda Shabda will not give you Jivan Mukti. What will give you Jivan Mukti is Veda Shabda Artha, the knowledge of the meaning of those words, especially the meaning of Mahavakya Shabda. And he asks the question, what is Veda Vishaya? What is the object of the words? The words reveal a particular object. What is the object revealed? Aksharam Brahma. And therefore he says the meaning of the word is Aksharam Brahma. The words themselves will not give you moksha, but the meaning of the words, the Shabda Artha, they give you the knowledge of Aksharam Brahma, and that alone is Paravidya. So the knowledge given by Upanishads on the subject of Aksharam Brahma, that is Paravidya. And he says That is to be read as the predominant intention of the word Paravidya. He says, Pradhanyena vivikshitam. The predominant intention conveyed by the words Paravidya is the meaning of the words appearing in the Upanishad and not the words themselves. Generally, when we say Veda, we refer to the group of the words only. We refer to the chanting part only, the Parayanam only. That knowledge is Aparavidya. Okay. So far, so good?
Yes, Acharya. Acharya, if I can just paraphrase slightly so that I know that I've
Yeah,
understood correctly. So, Paravidya here, it refers to the actual revelation of Akshara Brahma, the actual revelation of
Yeah.
Brahma itself, which is, which is from person to person. Now, for example, you are taking this class and you're telling us all about it.
Yeah.
So technically it is Paravidya, but it is Aparavidya in the sense that it is still limited to the words.
Words itself. Correct.
And until and unless it reveals itself to me,
Yes.
till then it will be Apara.
Correct. When that Brahman status of your own nature is revealed,
Yes.
that is the meaning of the word. Okay. After saying this, Shankara drops a big bombshell. So he says,
Raviji,
even-
I have a
Yeah,
question
go ahead,
before
go
we
ahead, go ahead.
proceed. What about the second Purva Pakshi's statement that, Veda cannot be in two pieces like that, para and apara? We didn't really address that.
You did, because you are saying that Veda Purva is Aparavidya. And if you remember the discussion we had in the very beginning of this,
Yes, the Anubandha Chatushtayam, where we treat them as two pramanams entirely.
Absolutely.
So finally, we are saying that it is not one Veda. There are actually two pramanams.
There are two pramanams because the adhikaris are different.
Yeah, and the phalam is also
And the
different.
phalam is different. And not only that, the Veda Purva, see, the definition of a pramanam is what? It cannot be negated by any other pramanam. So Veda Purva is pramanam for you until you've got Chitta Shuddhi. After that, when you come to Jnanam, your status as a karta gets negated. And therefore, Veda Purva gets negated by Jnana Kanda. Until that time, Veda Purva is pramanam. But once you come to Jnana Kandam, the Vedanta part of it, then the pramanam status of Veda Purva disappears for you.
That's okay. I understand that. Then why do we have in the list, we have only one Shabda Pramanam. We don't have two.
That is because until you come to, at one point of time, you'll have only one. When you are in Veda Pura portion, Jnana Kanda doesn't make sense to you because you are a karta. So for you, there is Veda Purva. When you come to Jnana Kanda, Veda Purva has been negated already. So you have only one pramanam again. At any point, the pramanam being, what is pramanam for you is always one.
Okay. So going forward, we treat both as two different pramanams.
Two different pramanams. For us, now at this stage, we have to say that Veda Purva is no longer pramanam for me. And here Shankara, I was telling, he drops a bombshell, right? So here this is relevant to the point you have made. So Shankara says that even if you study the Veda and its meaning, knowledge of Brahman is not possible. Why?
Because by that logic, then everyone who has the Veda Upanishads in their homes, they should all be Jivan Muktas.
That's one. But he says he adds something over there. Even if
Brahman
you study
cannot be objectified in that way. Aprameya.
Yeah, but what he says is, even if you study the words of the Veda and understand the meaning of the Veda, he says knowledge of Brahman is not possible for you without an additional effort. What is that additional effort?
Deconditioning of the mind.
You have to Answer in words which we understand. The conditional mind is fine, but what is the
Effortless understand.
no? He uses the word vairagyam.
Vairagya.
Okay, now vairagyam when he says here, vairagyam is a upalakshanam. What's the upalakshanam? All these words, remember, upalakshanam is a generic usage, like it represents a whole class. And the vairagyam is upalakshanam for what? It's upalakshanam for when you say Shamadi Sampattihi, you are saying only Shama. Shama is upalakshanam for what?
For the Shat Sampattis.
For the Shat Sampatti.
And Vairagya is for the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti.
Exactly. Vairagyam here means the entire sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. So he is not saying just vairagyam. He says you must have had sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. That additional effort should have been made by you before you come to Veda. Otherwise, your knowledge of Brahman is not possible. And therefore, it includes vairagyam and going to a guru and all those things. And he says that is the reason, very interesting phrase, that is the reason why Brahma Vidya has been separately presented as Paravidya, even though it is within the Veda. To reveal what? By saying this is Paravidya, he says, a very important emphasis has been given to Purva Veda, saying that without coming through Purva Veda, you cannot get the benefit of Vedanta. This is Shankara's interpretation of why Paravidya is separately presented, even though it is within Veda only. And therefore, you have one Aparavidya in the Veda and one Aparavidya. Okay. Another question can arise, which again relevant to what Meda said. What will a Purvapakshi say? Meda already enunciated that, but I'll repeat that question. Can we not accept Paravidya as Pramanam and Aparavidya as non-Pramanam? Half the Veda is Pramanam and other half is not Pramanam. Can we not accept? So we don't find a answer to this from Shankara, but Swami Dayanandaji says you should not do that because it is very similar to taking an egg and saying half the egg I will use for hatching a chicken and the other half I will use for making an omelette. I think more graphic answer than that I can possibly not give. Do you understand what it means?
Veda Purva is essential, is mandatory to be able to come to the Jnana portion of it, to be able to come to the Para portion of it. One without the other is, it doesn't work. And therefore, the first Pramanam is provisional Pramanam, but not absolute.
Yeah. So without that, you can't come to Jnanakanda. And therefore, as a seeker, on faith, you take it that the whole Veda is Pramanam. But I have two stages in my life. One is up to Chitta Shuddhi and one is post Chitta Shuddhi. When you are in the Jnanakanda, then Purva Veda ceases to be Pramanam for you. But remember that even when you study the Upanishadic mantras, that mantra is Aparavidya only. What is the Paravidya? It is that particular, after having studied, Tattva Bodha and Bhagavad Gita and 10 Upanishads, and then say, a lot of Prakrana Granthas, and then you do Brahma Sutras. After doing all that, what is the hope? What is the whole purpose of this study? Because you have been told thousands of times in all these by various mantras that Tat Tvam Asi. That is the teaching. But you can say that I know I am Brahman. Right? That will be the net effect of the teaching. Tattvamasi means you are Brahman, and you say, okay, I know I am Brahman. But That is not moksha. That is not Paravidya. Paravidya is when that Tattvamasi converts itself to what?
Vairagyam.
No.
Aham
Converts itself to
Aham
Aham
Brahmasmi.
Aham
Aham
Brahmasmi.
Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi is that vritti in your mind, that cognition in your mind, that thought in your mind, which tells you that, oh, I am Brahman. That vritti is called the Akhanda Akara vritti. That vritti is beyond the words of the Upanishads. It takes place in your buddhi only. And you might be a scholar. You might be remembering every mantra of every Upanishad. But until this Akhanda Akara vritti occurs in your buddhi, Paravidya has not taken place. So Paravidya is the vritti, is the thought by which I understand that I am Brahman. The vritti is generated by the words of the Upanishads. But the words of the Upanishad is not the moksha sadhanam. The moksha sadhanam is aham brahmasmi vritti alone. And therefore, in this particular phrase, yaya aksharam adigamyate iti paravidya, that which gives you the knowledge of Brahman, that is paravidya. Yaya aksharam adigamyate iti paravidya. You have to add a word in the middle. You have to supply a word in the middle. Yaya vrittaya aksharam adigamyate iti paravidya. That vritti by which I recognize that I am Brahman, that vritti alone is paravidya. Okay. Very, very important, a very, very beautiful way of understanding what is paravidya.
Raviji, I have multiple questions.
Please go ahead.
Okay, the first one is about the Pramanam, what you said, that once we are in the Vedanta portion, then the Purva Veda ceases to be a Pramanam.
For you,
For me, yes,
for you,
but
you cannot take that stand when you talk to anybody else, because that
It's again
person
all about context, like you said, one has
always
to context it.
contextual.
no, but even for me, I am not getting, like, just because I open my eyes, my ears don't cease to be a Pramanam.
No, but your eyes only give you one particular, sense object or two, form and color. Your ears are not pramanam for that. And the argument is not really correct because it doesn't require ears to get the sound before you come to see the form. They are not sequential.
Again, Traigunyo Vishaya Vedaha.
The sequentiality has to be understood here. Without coming to Chitta Shuddhi, this cannot be understood. It's like saying that I don't need the first rung of the ladder after I reach the top of the ladder. You may not need, but you don't discard. But you don't need it anymore.
So then essentially they're not two different Pramanams, they're like part of the same Pramanam but two different.
No. The adhikari changes. The adhikari for Veda Purva is a karta. Because Veda Purva tells you what? Do karma, do upasana, do Vedic rituals, is it not? So adhikari is a karta. But when you come to Jnana Kanda, your kartatvam is negated. You are no longer a karta. If you think you are a karta, Jnana Kanda will not function for you. That is the important difference trying to be brought out over here. That at Jnana Kanda level, the kartatvam has to be dropped. Karta, bhokta, identity that I have, which is essential for me in Jnana Kanda, that is an obstacle that's essential for me in Karma Kanda, becomes an obstacle for me in Jnana Kanda. And therefore I have to drop it. Why? Because any kartritvam means what? Deha abhiman. Identification with the body. To do karma or upasana, you have to identify yourself with your body-mind complex. And that is precisely what you are trying to get rid of in Jnana Kanda.
Okay. Leaving the Adhikari portion aside, the Purva Veda also is pramanam for all the rituals and
Yes.
the way to generate punyam and all that. But
Yes.
just because I am seeking in Jnanakanda now, it still does reveal the knowledge of all these apara vidya to me.
Which is of no use to you right now.
It again indicates kartritvam and bhoktritvam, which when one
That is critical. The understanding that as a karta bhokta, I cannot be in Jnanakanda.
But
See,
I
Veda,
need not be a karta to do the ritual.
you
I
have
may
to
not
be a karta.
get anything to, I may not get anything out of it, but I can still do the ritual.
but it's not relevant to you any longer. You might be doing it even just to, just because everyone is doing it.
See, for Loka Sangraham, if you are doing the ritual, I accept what you're saying. But even then, you are a Gauna Karta, are you not? Minimum.
Yes, yes.
You are a Gauna Karta. So if you are a Gauna Karta, it's okay. Gauna Karta is as good as not being a Karta. Figurative Karta, we said, right? This is where Shankara's Bhashyam comes in. Those who have not studied the Bhashyam, for those parts of the Gita, this Gauna concept will not be understood at all. So as long as you're Gauna Karta, you are as good as a Karta.
Okay. And my second question was related to the understanding portion that we were discussing today also and previously also, when I had the question of partial understanding. Either there is, you were saying either there is no understanding or understanding that there is Brahman. And I was saying that there must be a state of partial understanding. So actually we were having a discussion, Uday, Arvind and me, about the same thing for a long time. So one of the questions that came up was about Mananam and Nididhyasanam. If there is no state of partial understanding, then at the end of Mananam, a person is a Jnani, which one of the points was that it kind of makes Nididhyasanam redundant and not necessary. And the second point that came up was, what about the pre-mananam and post-mananam state? Pre-mananam is samshaya sahita jnanam and
Yes.
post is samshaya rahita jnanam.
Yes.
But what about the state in between? Is that not a state of partial understanding?
See, what Shankara says elsewhere is that just as Gauna Karta is as good as no Karta, Samshaya Rahita Jnanam or Samshaya Sahita Jnanam is as good as no Jnanam. Because it is not useful to you, right? What is the purpose of Atma Jnanam? It is to at least there are two purposes. In fact, there is only one purpose. Okay, one. What is that purpose? Purpose is to establish my identity as Brahman. Okay. So in this journey, supposing you have finished your Shravanam, you've done it for a very long time, systematically over a period of 10 years, fine. And still some certain doubts are there. So you have Samshaya Sahita Jnanam. That Jnanam is not available to you for giving Moksha Phalam, which is what? Freedom from insecurity. So what does not give you the result that it is supposed to give you, is it not as good as not being there? There is no partial understanding. It's not that partially I feel secure now. You don't. Either you feel secure or you don't feel secure. That is one. Okay. So Mananam removes your doubts. But there are two obstacles. One is your doubts. Once Mananam has removed your doubts, you are a Jnani for all practical purposes. But does it remove your habitual reactions is the question. Does it remove your flash of anger when somebody abuses you? Does it remove the sudden fear which comes when you are faced with some danger? If it doesn't, those are your habitual thinking patterns, the vasanas which are affecting you. I think I had a discussion with you only. I don't know if the others are aware. We use two words, vasanas and What was the other one, Meda?
Samskaras.
Samskaras. Both samskaras and vasanas are ultimately coming from where? From your previous karma only, is it not? So you have two things. One is your karma phalam of today, or the prarabdha karma as we call it, and one is the vasanas. The prarabdha karma, the karma phalam you are more aware of. The vasana is more subconscious, you are not aware of it. But the source of both that karma phalam or the prarabdha karma and the vasanas are basically a previous karma only. There is only a difference in the way it acts. Your vasanas influence you as what? As a karta. It influences your thinking processes. Your karma phalam influences you as a bhokta. Ultimately, both have their root in karma only. And therefore, both are obstacles for you. And as long as this, that instinctive reactions are there, certain instinctive reactions are different, like, for eating, hunger, all those things. But arising out of ajnanam, or arising out of these sort of vasanas, where there are instinctive instincts there, those are removed through nididhyasana. Both are obstacles. But one is an obstacle for jnanam itself, that is samshaya. One is an obstacle for getting a secure, problem-free life in the remaining part of your life. That's why I said earlier, even if that portion, nididhyasanam, doesn't go away, has not taken place, you are still a jnani. But the downside is that constantly buffeted by anger and sorrow and jealousy, what will happen is you will come to doubt that samshaya. You will come to have samshayam, doubt that jnanam. And that samshaya raita jnanam status may not remain, which brings you back to square one. That is why we say Shravanam plus Mananam plus Nididhyasana. Ultimately, all three land you up with moksha. It is dangerous to try to, drop Nididhyasanam from your life, because that vasanas of yours, that has the potential for, making you doubt your knowledge. Am I indeed Brahman? That knowledge, that problem might come up.
I think this is a question I should have asked sooner, but this samshaya, when we say doubt, it can have two kinds of meanings. One is lack of shraddha, and the second one is lack of clarity on a certain concept. Like somebody might have shraddha, but may have a question about some technical concepts.
Yes. So one is, the pramana samshaya. That's the word used. Pramana samshaya. Is what the Veda saying? Is it correct? That reflects lack of shraddha. And if that lack of shraddha is there, then it is no longer pramanam for you. You see, supposing I lift up this thing and I show you, and what is it?
A phone.
It's a phone. I tell you, no, Veda, this is not a phone. This is a jar of water. What will you say?
It's still a phone.
Why? Because your teacher is telling you it's a jar of water, right?
I don't have samshaya over my eyes.
You don't have samshaya over the pramanam, which is your eyes. That faith, that is called shraddha.
But Acharya, addressing this, Krishna has already told us what to do also in the 18th chapter.
Yes, yes. The point is, it can, samshayam, as Veda said, can take two forms. Pramana samshayam, lack of faith in the scripture itself, and lack of faith about whether I am indeed what the scripture says I am. How can I be? You trust the scripture. There is pramana shraddha is there. Scripture says you are Brahman, you say fine. But then how can I, with all these problems in my life, how can I be Brahman? So that is pramaya samshaya. samshayam on the object of the knowledge, not on the pramana. Both have to go. So normally when we say mananam, we assume that at the Shravanam stage, Pramana Samshayam is not there. You have accepted the Veda as Pramanam in totality. Okay. Again, remember that whenever I say Veda is Pramanam, Veda has to be accepted as Pramanam for Brahman only. Okay. So Veda will give you lots of statements about Srishti. It will give you a lot of statements about how Srishti took place and many other Anatma portions that will give you Pramanam. But those Anatma statements could possibly be negated by either logic or by experience. And therefore, whenever we validate Shruti, you have to make sure that the statement made by Shruti is not capable of being negated by logic or by your personal experience. Then only there is Shraddha. So when Shruti tells you that doing, let us say, Nachiketa Homa, which is a ritual to take you to heaven, doing that will give you enough punyam to carry you to heaven. By logic, can you negate the statement? Is there any logical way of negating that statement?
No.
No. So you accept that from the logical point of view. All you can say is, I cannot use logic to negate or to prove. And then you do not have experience, right? Experience of, you may have in the previous Janma gone and come there, but that memory is not available to you. And therefore your anubhava, your experience cannot negate that statement. And therefore you accept. Like somewhere else, Shankara says that if 1,000 statements of Shruti tells you that fire is cold, you should not accept that statement, even though it is Shruti itself. Why? Because Anubhava tells you that fire is hot.
Raviji,
Yeah.
I had a question. Earlier, we were discussing about this. So it said Pramanam, though they seem to be two, that is Veda Purva Bhaga and Veda Anta Bhaga, it is not too different because Adhikaris are different.
Adhikaris are different.
So my question is, most of the Vedanta students today are not completely completed the sadhana chatushtaya. They have sufficient amount of sadhana chatushtaya to start learning Veda Anta Bhaga. Like in my case, if I say, it's not that I'm completely sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, but I am in Vedanta class. So for me, Veda Purva and Veda Anta both are pramanams now. Until I become sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, Veda Purva remains to be a pramanam.
But they're contradictory. They are contradicting each other in terms of objectives. You can't spend half the day saying I'm karta and 1 hour on Saturday saying that I'm not akarta. Can you?
No.
That's what I'm saying.
No, my I don't know. My question was, until I am sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, I continue to do Veda Purva Bhaga for
Correct.
Chittasuddhi's sake.
For you, Veda Purva Bhaga is Pramanam. Vedanta has not become Pramanam at all. You are studying, yes. But Vedanta is not Pramanam for you until you have completed Sadhana Chatushtaya.
Okay.
You cannot, we don't say that you don't come here without being Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, because we don't know, right, when you will become.
Right.
And if you insist on that, how many people will be really able to study? So we say you take the study. What will happen is the rest of your life, after you complete your Jnana Kanda portion, your Vedanta portion, the rest of your life you will be meditating upon this as well as doing Sadhana Chatushtayam. Sooner or later it will be complete. And the Veda itself, the Pramanam itself, the Jnana Kanda itself, shows you the fallacy of being a karta. So it will probably hasten up your Chitta Shuddhi process.
But
Yeah.
I have shraddha over it. That's why I'm studying it.
you have Shraddha, it is Pramanam.
Yeah,
But
it is
it has-
Pramanam.
But, and your Shraddha that Veda Purva is also Pramanam. Point is
But I-
that as long as you think you are Karta, you are not going to be a Karta.
Mhm.
There is a conflict there.
But Raviji, there is no one specific moment where I transit from Karta status to Akarta status. So when will there be a moment ever where I can categorically say that from now on
That is why I say it's always
Bhagwan is
like
the
that.
Pram-
You can't say in the morning that, today and January 1st, I will be 20% Karta. In March, I'll be 40% Karta. No. Either you are Karta or you are not. Why is this so? You look at the very definition of Paravidya. What is the definition? Yatha, yaya, vrittaya. The thought which occurs in your mind. Thought is it's an instantaneous process. It is built upon the foundation of all your study, yes. But the thought itself comes in one moment. Thought is not spread over a period of time. I can tell, simple thing is, you do, let us say, I don't know if you experienced it, I have, doing Paschimottanasana, So I struggled with it for several years. And one fine day I said, boom, oh, this is it. Has that happened to anybody?
Acharya with Shirshasan, in Madurai with you.
Yeah, so this is it. That is a moment. It is what you call the aha moment. When you are convinced without doubt, this is it. That doesn't take place over time. It is definitely built. Like my experience was definitely built on years of trying to practice. But that conviction that this is the right way, that occurs in a minute. As Tanmay said, her conviction that this is Shirshasanam, that came in a moment. It was built on several months of practice before that. Yes.
And Acharya, I think I've said this before, and I think it's an important thing to kind of just let it sink in that it's a spontaneous occurrence. That vritti is also a spontaneous occurrence. It's not something that you have to deliberately think of.
Absolutely. It is not deliberate at all. It's just occurrence, spontaneous occurrence. But it is built on your entire effort of Shravanam, Maranam, and Nididhyasana. That is the foundation. That is why I said that there is no partial, you cannot be partially Brahman. You are either Brahman or you are not.
Raviji, I was thinking of the example of downloading an app. Even 99% is incomplete, but 100% is like complete.
Absolutely.
But
that-
I don't get how this works when it comes to the mind. The app example, I've understood it technically, but
That's
I
Veda,
still don't
sorry
get
I'm
it.
interrupting, but this is something that Acharya has explained to us so many times. You can't understand with impermanent things. You can't understand with Laukika things. You can't understand that with.
Actually, Maida, the app example is not bad. Do you know why the app gives you a not fully downloaded status until 100%? Even at 99.999%, if you stop, the app won't function. Do you know why?
It's not complete.
Why? It's got a self-check at the end. It runs a self-check program after it is downloaded to see whether everything is there. And that's when it says 100%. So this self-check program that your mind runs, is my understanding complete? After the self-check is over, then it says, oh, fine, I'm Brahman. I'm
When
sure
you let
it's-
it, sorry, when you let it be, and when you are least expecting it, actually when you're not even expecting it, you're not expecting anything.
yes, that's also true. Sometimes when you don't expect it, it happens. Because for sometimes this practice takes you to a plateau, for months on end, there'll be no change in you. And that's a time when you should persevere, because otherwise you'll, get distracted, discouraged.
So that age-old question of is moksha a process or is it an spontaneous event?
No, moksha is ever present, Mira. You are free
No.
even now.
No, okay. This find the generation of this vritti.
Generation of the vritti is a spontaneous process. Spontaneous,
But-
instantaneous process.
But it is also in a way a process. Like you have to build up to it.
That agreed with. That I agree with. But you can, the point is, normally process, when you use the word process, you are saying that there's a series of discrete steps which you take. And if there are 100 steps to be taken, then once the 100 steps are taken, the process is complete and the end result is obtained. But that is not there here. You can take all the steps necessary and yet not have the vritti if sadhana chatushtayam is not there. If sadhana chatushtayam is there 100%, then you don't need to go through all this. Somebody tells you tattvamasi, that is it. And this is the most difficult part of Vedanta to grasp. How does this vritti suddenly arise? And the only way you can do it is to, I used to say earlier, fake it till you make it. Tell yourself, I am Brahman. I don't care what anybody else says. Nididhyasana is essentially nothing but faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Okay, any other questions? This is a very, very important, mantra for all of us. Right. So now we'll go ahead with the next mantra, which is the definition of Brahman. 116, sixth mantra. So it says, Yet. Now when you read that, you have to carefully break it up. Yet tad adreshyam. Okay. Then you have to add the word tad again. Tad agrahyam, tad agotram, tad avarnam, tad achakshuhu. You have to add here ashrotram. Tad ashrotram, tad apani, tad apadam. These are the first two lines. Let's see what they say. So, when he starts this mantra, his commentary on this mantra, Shankara does an introductory commentary for the mantra. And before the mantra, he puts a small little commentary. He says, what is the difference between Paravidya and Aparavidya? He says, any knowledge which is other than Paravidya will never give direct benefit. Why? Because any karma which Purva Veda mandates, the Karma Kanda mandates, there are two aspects of that, of getting the benefit, of getting the phalam. What are they? First is one should gain the knowledge of the ritual, and the second is one should perform the ritual. Unlike Paravidya, which gives you direct benefit, in Karma Kanda, after getting the knowledge, you need to do karma. You need to perform the ritual. The knowledge how to make jasmine tea will not produce jasmine tea for me. I actually need, after learning how to make the tea, I need to go and make the tea. So, for example, there is Nachiketa Yaga, Nachiketa Homa. This is Kathopanishad. So, we'll see that time. Briefly, that it's something with which Yamaraj teaches Nachiketas. What is that? By doing this, you can get sufficient punyam and you go to Swarga. Here, the additional, in addition to performing. So here also, for Nachiketa Homa, for example, there is the knowledge to be obtained. That's one. then the performing of the homam, that is 2. And to get the benefit, there is an additional factor. What is that? Anybody? Remember, Nachiketa Homam does what? It takes you to Swarga.
You have to die.
You have to
Leave
die.
the body.
The third portion is you have to die, right? So Nachiketa Homa is slightly more complicated. You get the knowledge, you do the homam, and then you wait for the body to die. Similarly, Upasana also. In the 8th chapter of Gita we saw, Omkara Upasana. Doing the Upasana regularly throughout your life first requires the knowledge of how to do the Upasana. Then it requires you to practice it regularly throughout your life. And then it requires for you to die. And even while dying, you have to, give all those, do it in all these particular format which Krishna said in chapter 8, sitting there straight away with the eyes, you gather all the your prana and take it to the head. All those things he said. All has to be done. And all this will fructify when Marana Kali, right? So all sit straight, spine straight, all these problems are there. So these are the limitations of Veda Purva Jnana. This is what Shankara says. But in the case of Paravidya, he says, nothing like this is there. So he says, na tatha iha. Such a requirement does not exist here in Paravidya, because at the time of knowledge itself, the benefit is also concluded. You get the benefit at the same time as getting the knowledge. And therefore he says nothing else remains to be done other than jnana matra nishtha, abiding in that knowledge. What type of knowledge? He says kevala shabda prakashita artha. Very simple words. Kevala, only. Shabda prakashita artha. Knowledge revealed through Vedanta Shabda, through Vedanta Vakyam. And Shankara very clearly says, this knowledge comes from Shravanam. So that's what the word means. Shabda Prakashita Artha. Shabda Prakashita means Shravanam. He does not talk about Mananam. He does not talk about Nididhyasana. He does not say the knowledge will come later. He says it comes from the listening to the words. Okay. Then a question can arise. Shruti says elsewhere, Chandogya or Bradaranyaka, I forget which. It says that you have to do Shravanam, you have to do Mananam, and you have to do Nididhyasana. So a question should arise. If Jnanam arises in Shravanam, and as Shankara says, nothing else is required, then why does Veda talk about Mananam and Nididhyasanam? So Shankara himself answers. He says Mananam and Nididhyasanam are the removal of obstacles for what? Jnana Nishtha, abidance in that knowledge. What is meant by Jnana Nishtha, abidance in the knowledge?
Enjoying the phalam of jnanam.
Enjoying the phalam of Jnanam is fine.
Samshaya Rahit Jnanam to attain Jnana Phalam.
Not really. Again, okay, but you can probably word it slightly more. Anybody? A word or a group of words will give exactly what is meant by Jnana Nishtha. Which is what is meant by Nididhyasana. What does it mean?
Being rooted in the knowledge that Aham Brahma.
Agreed. But make it more simple for us to understand.
Brahmavid apnoti parma.
Yeah, but what does it mean? Now these are all words from Shruti. When I say that I'm Jnana Nishtha,
The
I'm a
one
Jnana Nishtha,
who
what
knows
do-
Brahman.
Jivan,
Even when all the body, mind, sense complex are, even when they're involved in things of Prakriti, even then knowing at all points in time that this is not me, I am that Brahma. These are all doing what they have to do.
So the constant remembrance of the fact that I am Brahman. What is a Laukika example? The best example which you can give. Whenever you are doing anything, do you remember who you are? Do you ever forget, that I am Arvind or I am Medha? Is that available to you, that knowledge, irrespective of whatever you are doing? And we are not talking about Sushupti Avastha or about Swapna Avastha. Any Jagrada Avastha stage, whatever activity you are involved in, do you always remember who you are?
Yes.
That is Jnana-nishtha. If I wake you up at 2 o'clock in the night and say, who are you? Do you say, I'm Arvind? Then that is Jnana-nishtha. But when I wake you up 2 in the night and I say, who are you? Your reply should be what?
Aham Brahmasmi.
I am Brahman. If you are able to say, I am Brahman, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, so this Gauna Kartritvam is there. Your figurative understanding that your body, that you are doing the work because the body is doing the work is there, but you always remember that I am Brahman. That is what is meant by Gauna Kartritvam, which Shankara talked about. That is called Jnana-nishtha. Always remembering, or put other words, the knowledge that I am Brahman is always available to me. There is no time in my life when the knowledge that I am Brahman is not available to me. And therefore, Shankara says, because of this, you should understand that Maranam and Nididhyasanam are only for the removal of the obstacles to Jnana-nishtha. Because as long as your mind is being influenced by those obstacles, Jnana-nishtha cannot be there. And therefore, no additional knowledge is to be obtained either from Maranam or from Nididhyasanam. The knowledge has been already obtained. All that is required is 2 types of obstacles. One of Samshayam, doubts, and one of Viparita Bhavana, habitual thinking patterns. Those have to be removed. And therefore, Shankara says Brahma Vidya is different from Apara Vidya because Apara Vidya requires action after knowledge. Brahma Vidya requires no action after knowledge. And this is one of the most important mantras of Mundaka Upanishad. And therefore, it's a bit of an abstract mantra. Now, elsewhere, if you look at Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, it defines Brahman as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. And that is one of the most beautiful definitions available. And any Upanishad you see will focus on one or more of these 4 words. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So Brahma, when you say Satyam, take the first word, Satyam. Brahman is being defined as existence principle. So whenever I experience an object, let us say I'm experiencing the cell phone. I say there is a cell phone. I say there is a watch, there is a glass, there is a bottle. What do I focus on? I focus on cell phone, glass, bottle. But I don't focus on there is. And the Upanishad is saying this bottle, glass, etc. Okay, anatma. So don't focus on that. Focus on the status or the substratum of that anatma, the very support of that anatma, which is existence principle itself. And that is represented by the words there is. So there is a cell phone, there is a bottle. That isness is common to every single object that you can think of. And what do you mean when you say there is? What is communicated by the word is? The answer is equal to existence. When I say is, I am saying that particular object exists. And that is why when something is not there, I say it is not there. Is still there. It is not there. And therefore, this existence associated with every single object, every single being. And Vedanta, as a Vedantin, I should ask myself, what is the relationship between the object and its existence? Are they two different things? Is the existence of the bottle a part of the bottle, or is it a product of the bottle, or is it a property of the bottle? Does that ring a bell? Those words should ring a bell.
Yes, Acharya. Property is the definition of Atma.
The definition of existence, Atma, Brahman. And therefore, if you analyze sufficiently, you will see that you cannot say that existence is either a part of the object or a product or the property. Why can you not say? Let us say I am talking about a bottle. What is the argument to establish that existence is not a part of the object, of the bottle? What argument can you use? No?
That means this part can be separated from the bottle, which is not possible.
No. You have to simply ask yourself, this bottle, did it have a beginning and will it have an end? And if you say existence is part of the bottle, what does it mean? Existence also has to have a beginning and has to have an end. But existence, when we say, remember, we're talking about Atma or Brahman. And Shruti tells you that Brahman has no beginning and no end. And therefore, while the bottle is agama apainaha, will come and go, existence cannot come and go, and therefore existence cannot be a part of the bottle. Do you agree?
Yes, Acharya.
Okay. If you agree with that logic, then the other two are also simple. Same logic is used for existence cannot be a product, existence cannot be a property of the bottle. Right? So Brahman or Atma is not product, part, or property of the bottle. If not, what is it? It is an independent entity which pervades every object. How? Because of that Brahman only, that bottle exists. And therefore, independent entity pervading all objects and lending existence to these objects. Again, how many objects are there in Brahman? Countless. Does the object limit Brahman? No. And therefore, we arrive at the third condition. Brahman or existence is not limited by the boundaries of the object. When the object is destroyed, Brahman continues to exist. So will continue to exist even after the objects are destroyed. And then we come to the concept of RC and OC. The surviving existence cannot be recognized or is not available for me without a medium through which I can recognize. So just as consciousness is reflected, existence is also reflected when something is there. When nothing is there, I cannot say there is. Of course, I can always say there is nothing. To that extent, existence is a bit more refined than consciousness. And therefore, this pure existence we call Satyam. So we can give the example of moon on a Paurnami, full moon night. You see what? A very bright moon. So moon is associated with a very bright light. Is that moonlight, is that bright moonlight part of the moon? No. It's not a part. It's not a product. It's not a property. That belongs to the sun. And yet we call it moonlight. So we give it the second definition. Moonlight is an independent light which pervades the moon, which reflects on the moon and gives it light. Right? So first one is what? Moonlight is not part of the moon. Not a property, not a part, not a product. Second one is moonlight is independent sunlight which is pervading the moon and making it bright. And the third one is that sunlight is not limited by the boundaries of the moon. And the fourth one is that sunlight will continue to exist even if the moon goes away. And the fifth one is when the moon is gone, that surviving light, even though it is there, it cannot be seen. It cannot be recognized. Okay. What we have studied earlier as Atma, I'm just converting the whole thing to existence. Consciousness principle converted to existence principle. Any questions so far? I think we should
How
stop
much?
here. Yeah.
Amacharya, I understood it. I understood in relation to the moon,
Yeah.
the existence principle, but not in relation to the bottle. I don't know.
Existence principle, moon was
Isness
simpler.
is always there. That's all I have to say.
No.
Whether the bottle is there or not there, isness is always there.
Yeah, because see, in this moonlight example, what is the equivalent to existence?
It's the moonlight,
No, the sunlight.
Sunlight.
the sun.
The sun's light is the
Yeah.
equivalent of the Atma or the existence principle. The reflection is the reflected light, reflected consciousness, you want to call it. So it's easy to
Yes.
understand.
Yes.
But just as we say that consciousness is reflected, we have to say that any object having existence exists because it borrows existence from Brahman or Atman. And because Brahman is all pervading, the same principles apply in case of the bottle. Whether bottle is there or not, Brahman continues to be.
Isness is always there.
Business is always there. Only thing when bottle is not there, you can't say there is a bottle. So it cannot be recognized. The same principle
Mhm.
is being applied in consciousness as well as in existence. So with this, we'll stop in case there are any questions because we have not started the mantra as yet. That will start the next class.
Acharya, I had one question.
Yes, please.
You had, I'm trying to find it. You had said something about a Vakya from the Manu Smriti. I'm trying to find it. I've written it down. That anything outside the Veda is
Dushta pramanam.
Dushta
Pramanam.
Pramanam.
Or
Okay.
Dushta jnanam, whatever.
Dushta, yeah. Okay.
And nishphalam, without any benefits.
Right. Okay. Wrong. So the Dushta Pramanam can be said to be wrong knowledge?
Incorrect knowledge.
Incorrect.
Yes.
Okay. Acharya. Thank you, Acharya.
So you are able to see the difference in the handling of the same topics. Okay, topics are the same, but Gita handled it differently. Here we are handling it differently. Okay, so with this we'll stop. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience, guys.
Thank you, Acharya. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay.